This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunanan. Now, on this show, we talk about everything under the sun. And tonight is once again about sports, specifically Eskrima, which is the original Filipino martial art form. And joining us to talk about our Arnis or Eskrima is none other than the archivist of the Calis Ilustrisimo Arnis system, Mr. Romeo Macapagal. Good evening, sir.
Good evening,
Welcome to
buddy.
Philippines Uncut. Thank you po.
Yes, thank you also for inviting me over.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for allowing me to be able to express certain information about Arnis or Eskrima,
Yes.
or what is now locally called, internationally called, the Filipino Martial Arts.
FMA.
FMA.
Sir,
Yes.
thank you very much for coming to the show because this is a topic I've been wanting to cover for a long time.
Yes.
And it's very close to my heart because it is a Filipino martial art
It is,
form, and it's
indeed.
something we should all really be very proud of.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you're here today to talk about this. Now, before we talk about Eskrima, let's talk about your background. Tell us a bit about who is Mr. Romeo Macapagal.
Well, essentially, I am a retired businessman. I was a banker for a long time. I was in shipbuilding. I was in fishing, commercial fishing. I also had my hand in consultancy management operations. And I actually studied martial arts. As a young man, it was the vogue at that time. Any young man needed to know how to fight.
Opo.
But then I chanced upon Antonio Tatang Ilustrisimo teaching a few people at Luneta.
Opo.
I thought it resembled the movements of my grandfather, and I asked to be instructed. And this kindly old gentleman was generous enough to share his knowledge and friendship with me. And as my study continued, I realized that there was something exceptional about the art that he was teaching. It was exceptional because it was almost scientific in its movements. It was not just swinging instinctively, emotionally, but it was carefully designed. The movements were carefully designed.
Very deliberate.
Deliberate
Yes, yes.
to have a specific effect
Yes, yes.
on the opponent.
Yes. Because alam niyo po, when you see, in fact, that video we saw earlier,
Yes.
was the adaptation of Eskrima and Arnis in
Yes.
pop culture.
Yes.
As we see in the movies.
Yes.
Opo.
Well, they need to do that in order to catch the attention of the audience.
Very theatric po.
Very theatrical.
Exaggerated. A
Yes,
little bit. Opo.
exaggerated.
Opo.
Because in a real fight, you don't want your opponent to see your move. Much less anyone outside watching you shouldn't see what you're doing. Because if they can see what you're doing, they can defend against it.
Don't telegraph.
No,
Kumbaga.
non-telegraphic,
Oh, yes,
and it
yeah.
should actually be so simple and so direct that it is sneaky, if that is possible.
Yes, sir.
Because it cannot be seen. They cannot
course.
predetermine how it's coming.
And is that what Arnis is? I mean,
This
it
is
really
what good quality Arnis is.
Oho.
Unfortunately, there have been many newcomers to the art who see commercial opportunities in it, so that they start to pick the more theatrical, the more cinematic movements.
It sells. It sells.
Because it sells.
Popular, yes.
It has become popular.
Yes po.
And in this regard, the old style of Arnis has slowly deteriorated. In some instances, no longer practiced.
Let's talk about that. When you say the old style, let's talk about the history. How did Arnis evolve into what it is today, which is a Filipino martial art?
Well, originally, the fighting art of the Filipino before the Spaniards arrived was an admixture of local native skills in fighting using
Okay.
the blade,
Apo?
and also because of the cultural influences of the Chinese and the Indian civilization. Remember that the Majapahit and Srivijayan empires went up to the Philippines. They
Yes.
started from Indonesia. The Majapahit came from Indonesia. And that's why it's Indonesia. It means Indian, Hindu islands.
Yes, yes.
And the Srivijaya came by way of Thailand into the Philippines.
So
And
it really was a mixture of these influences.
it's a mixture of these
produced
influences.
Arnis, or
And then
Eskrima.
the traders from China, starting from Zhang He, that famous admiral, okay, brought the Chinese into these shores for raw materials. And they influenced the way that the Filipinos fought.
Yes.
Now, when the Spaniards arrived in the Philippines, they wanted to establish colonies for their people,
Yes.
for their officers.
Yes.
And these colonies became targets for the Muslim raiders. When the Spaniards arrived in the Philippines, it was Reconquista all over again.
Yes. Yes.
In Spain, the Reconquista was done 50 or so years before they came here, and they were able to drive out the Muslims, the Moors.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because before that, for 800 years, it was a seesaw battle between
Yes.
the Spaniards and the Moors.
Yes.
Now, in the Philippines, they found the same situation, a Reconquista, and they had to teach the local population
How to defend themselves.
how to fight, how to defend themselves.
Okay.
Because they were losing people, labor. Remember, they made serfs out of the Filipinos. Okay? Out of the Indios that they chanced upon in the
Yes,
islands.
yes.
But to have this population reduced, decimated every year, was bad for their business.
course.
So they had to teach people how to fight.
Now, Mr. Macapagal, these weapons we see in front of us, you
Yes.
brought two swords. What are these exactly? Can we hold them up for our viewers to see?
Yes.
What is this exactly?
This is called a Zanzibar. It is mostly found today in the island of Samar. But this is a direct influence of the trade that we had with Madagascar,
Okay.
okay, which is where Zanzibar is.
Yes, yes.
Where there was trade between the Philippines. In fact, there was a historical commission that constructed a wooden vessel similar to what was used before.
Yes, yes.
This was maybe 30 years ago.
Yes.
And it has a scimitar-like shape. And remember, the scimitar actually, or the talwar, actually influenced the shape of the saber.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So this is what they used before to
Yes.
one of the weapons they used to defend
These are
themselves.
essentially dueling weapons.
Yes.
For heavy must fighting, heavier swords were used that could cut off a limb with one blow.
Ouch, ouch.
Okay?
Yeah.
And one of the best examples, romantic examples that we have now is the barong of the tausug.
Yes.
Because it is leaf-shaped, it has tremendous cutting power, and it is now a subject of romantic thought.
Yes. But how did the Zanzibar eventually morph or evolve into the modern sport or martial art now, Arnis? Because now you guys use these rattan sticks.
Yes.
Yes.
The original Arnis or eskrima or sword fighting system that was an admixture of the silat, which was also a compound of Indian and Chinese systems, mixed together with European sword work, became our present Arnis. Now, originally, the weapon that was used was a sword, a
Yeah.
sharp sword.
So if it's the stick we have now is a substitute for
Yes,
these
the
blades.
stick, let me leave this here.
Yes,
The
yes.
stick is equivalent to the foil or the shinai
Yes.
of the foil of the Europeans
Yes.
or the shinai of the Japanese,
Okay.
which can be used for practice without causing too much injury.
Yes.
You get hurt, but you don't get seriously injured.
You don't lose limbs.
Oh yes, you don't lose limbs and you don't drip blood. Not too much anyway. So since we were endowed
Yes, sir.
with rattan in our forests, this was easily available. It's light. It doesn't cause too much pain, not too much injury. And we resorted to using this for practice instead of using blunts, because we have blunts.
Yeah. Yes.
We have blunts which are unsharpened swords.
Oh, you call them blunts.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this is what
is
used
a
for
blunt.
practice.
Yes.
It is.
It doesn't have an edge.
Yes. It will hurt though if you're
It
hit by
will
one.
hurt.
But it
You
won't
can
cut
actually
but it
do
will-
a lot of damage.
But it won't cut you.
You
Okay.
can do a lot of damage with these blunts.
Yes.
But for most purposes, the stick is used. And that's why eventually, in the last 40 or 50 years,
Yes.
the Arnis that I knew has become known now as the art of Filipino stick fighting.
So it really is today as a sport. It's really based on a stick, on this instrument.
In its training and sports aspect, it is based on the stick, on the rattan stick.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a representation of an edged weapon.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there has also been a later development using padded sticks. There's a thin rattan vine.
Yes. I can see. So
Covered by foam.
It's
Yes.
not as hard. You get
It's not
bounced
as
a little
hard.
bit.
It will bounce off. It will produce welts, but you can practice with it.
Okay. And this is what you use for a competition. Is this no?
Yes. Some competitions use the padded stick. Some competitions use thinner rattan sticks than this, about half the diameter of this.
So Mr. Macapagal, if you're let's say if you have these skills and you're adept at stick fighting, you can
Yes.
easily shift, let's say, from stick and blade, and essentially it's the same set. It's the same skill set that you will have.
Yes. It's essentially the same skill set.
Yes.
Okay? But for me now, if you're thinking of using this in terms of self-defense,
Okay. That was going to be my next
yes,
question. Yeah.
it is only to orient you towards the blade, towards movements that have to do with striking and thrusting. Because today, all around the world,
Okay.
people are getting stabbed and sliced. And if you go into the internet now, into YouTube, there are a lot of videos showing attacks by machete-wielding
Yes,
gangsters.
yes, yes.
However, for me, the objective, if you want a self-defense objective, the objective of learning Arnis in its formal form
Okay.
is to allow you to understand how to defend yourself against a knife.
Okay. Yeah.
Ah.
So it's both an offensive it's both an offensive art form and also very defensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, people have always thought of martial arts as a way of defense.
Yes.
Okay? And rightfully so, that people should not think in terms of aggression. Okay? It makes for a very disordered society.
Of course.
Okay? Now, this is a representation of a dagger.
Again, very blunt.
Again,
which
very blunt.
You can use for training. or
Yes, can
practice.
use it for training.
Okay.
And for flash, then there is a stainless model.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
then for sparring, then we use a shorter rattan stick so,
So-
that it's not too painful.
So sometimes you do practice with both a long stick and a short stick.
Yes,
To like
it is called espada y daga.
espada y daga, sword
Yes.
and knife.
Sword and knife.
In Spanish,
Yes.
espada y daga.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And of course, the wooden weapons are used to teach.
Now, Mr. Macapagal,
Yes.
for those people watching us now who are interested in learning self-defense, how effective is Arnis as a self-defense method?
For me, it is very effective overall because Arnis, or at least Calis Illustrissimo, has both armed and unarmed methods of defense.
That was going to be my other question, because since we're talking about blades and sticks, what happens if you don't have a stick
Exactly.
with you?
This is why the training of Arnis or Esgrima, for that matter, actually started with 2 sticks,
Okay.
so that you gain proficiency
With both arms.
with both hands
With both
or
hands,
arms,
yes.
okay? And then you graduated
To the daga.
to the espada,
Idaga.
espada, idaga.
Idaga, yeah.
Okay. From here, you went into a daga, idaga, corto. And
Short knives.
short
daga,
and short.
idaga, corto.
Daga,
Yeah.
idaga, corto.
Yes, yes.
Okay? And then it was just daga. And then you let go and learn how to handle bladed weapon attacks with just your bare hands.
Can the movements, let's say, be used even without blade or any implements? Let's say just using your fists. Can this be used as well on the offense to attack or something?
Yes,
Can be.
yes.
Yeah.
Because this is where the silat form, this is the silat aspect of Arnis comes in, where you can use your bare hands to handle weapons, or you can go bare hand against bare hand.
And the
You-
movements are essentially the same. Yeah.
The movement sense is the same,
Okay.
but the movements are not exactly the same.
When you say movement sense, what does that mean?
The movement sense is that of precision,
Okay.
of going for the shortest distance to your target. Okay, whether your target is an offensive weapon coming your way that you're defending against, or you want to strike.
So it really teaches you how to react to
Yes.
to dangerous situations when you're
Yes.
placed in peril.
Yes.
As you said, those basic things don't change.
No,
Yes.
it teaches you awareness of danger situations. And the way that we teach, we tell our boys, our students, steer away from trouble. When you see something
Avoid.
suspicious,
Yes.
walk
Walk
10
away.
blocks around.
And before we close, I just want to say, a lot of masters I've met in Taekwondo, Karate,
Yes.
Jiu-Jitsu, all these things, that's a common thing they always say.
Yes.
That regardless of how good they are, they always say, walk away. If you can walk away, run away, get away.
Big-
This is a last resort thing.
Because even the best masters in a free-for-all sparring match
Yes.
with a student also get hit.
Okay. Sir, hold that thought. We have the pause
Yes.
for a break. And we're
Yes.
going to be joined by your
Yes,
colleague.
by Arnold
Yes, by
and-
Arnold. When
yes.
you come back. Guys, more of Eskrima and Calis Illustrissimo when Philippines Uncut returns.